Hello, welcome back to Meraki Unboxed. My name's Simon, and I'm host of the show that comes online every 2 weeks, covering all things at Meraki, a lot of the technology stuff that we do, but also talking about life at Meraki. And it's really a mix of interviewing Meraki folks, as we're doing today, in fact. And also, we occasionally bring in customers and partners to talk about how their experiences are being changed by the use of Meraki technology. If you would like to be a part of this show, I would really love that to happen. So please reach out to us. You can do that through the Meraki community at community.meraki.com. You can also reach me directly on Twitter at Meraki Simon. Drop me a line, and we would love to have you on the show if you've got a great story to tell us about your use of Meraki technology. Today, it's Friday, April 24th as we're recording this, and it's Friday afternoon. We're all completely burned out after a very busy week at the office. I say at the office, what I really mean is we're all working from home, as I hope you are as well. And obviously that means that we are doing our best to keep the lights on with these shows and really keep that coming to you every couple of weeks, as I said. But today we're going to focus on the topic of security. Network security, obviously, absolutely paramount for everybody who runs a network. So we're going to get into some of those details in a few moments. To do that, or just to get ready for that, I'm going to introduce the rest of the panel that we have today of esteemed Merakians. And I'm going to start off with Amelie. How are you doing today, Amelie?
I'm doing well, Simon. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. And tell us what you do for Meraki.
Well, Simon, at Meraki, I am doing product marketing, and I'm supporting a team of esteemed product managers and what features they're building out for our customers.
We have so many esteemed people at Meraki. It's amazing.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, and also on the line we have Mr. Rob Watt. Hello, Rob.
Hey, Simon.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and I have to say thank you for stating the date because every day is blending together at this point.
It does feel like that, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
And the bizarre thing to me as well is that without all those little interruptions you have when you're in the office, it feels pretty intense. I feel like I spend my entire life on WebEx and just back to back to back all day. So it's nice to take a break and do this recording today. I'm enjoying it. Rob, where are you calling in from today?
I am calling in from San Francisco from my lovely apartment.
Sunny San Francisco. It actually is today. It's not foggy yet. We haven't reached that time of the year. Okay, cool. Alex, we have Mr. Alex Berger as well. Tell us all about yourself, Alex, and where you're from.
Oh man, that's a loaded one. So my name is Alex Berger. I'm a product architect in the Meraki PM org. I usually focus on fun things like access layer integrations, and I am phoning in from Denver, Colorado.
Beautiful Denver. How is it in Denver today?
Oh, it's actually sunny and pretty warm. I'm kind of happy with that. Hopefully I'll go outside and get some sun.
You know, this is an amazing coincidence, but I think this is the third podcast recording in a row where somebody has been calling in from near Denver, Colorado. I don't know what it is, but it just seems to be the place at the moment.
It is nice here.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all for taking time out of the day, especially on a Friday afternoon. But let's have some fun with this. We're going to get into a very important topic, of course, which is network security. And really, I think we want to focus on some of the aspects that we've been adding at Meraki that go far beyond your traditional concept of security. When you start doing networking at the beginning of your career, you mostly think in terms of a firewall. But any network engineer worth their salt will tell you that it's far broader than that. It touches many different areas, especially because we're now using so many different devices. We have our data in all different places. We have to be able to protect the network and secure it in many different ways. Rob, I know you want to get this going and tell us about what we're going to really focus on today. Maybe get us started with this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about my favorite topic, security. So really, Simon, like what we want to talk about today is not firewall centric security technologies and security solutions, but security solutions that are inside the network at that LAN layer. So our new security initiatives in the switching and wireless portfolio primarily, and really focusing in on one particular feature.
Okay, where do we get started?
Absolutely. So, we've with our customers and networks that are deployed, for years and years and years. I don't know how long you've been in the industry, Simon, but I've been here quite some time. We've had the wonderful pleasure of securing networks with IP-based access controls, right? So I want to allow access to a particular server. I type in the IP address and the port information, and away we go and access that resource. That was great years and years ago when networks were small and not so complex. But really, as we continue to deliver additional services on these networks, we needed to change that.
Right, and firewalls. I mean, I embarrassingly have been in this industry a very long time. It's too long for me even to say. But when I started thinking about firewalls, the world was so much simpler. It was just a wide area network, and the internet was the sort of big bad world outside. And then you had this firewall thing, as you said, mostly based around like an access control list of some description. And then that was all you really need to worry about. Then you just have everything inside is considered to be safe. But that's really what we're saying is really not applicable anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great solution at the time, but it doesn't scale to meet the needs of today. So, we took a look at this and thought about, like, how could we solve this problem? And there's different points in the network where you can solve this, whether it's layer 3 access controls, but we wanted to do this in the Meraki way. We wanted to do this we really wanted to simplify a powerful technology and bring it to our customers. So, I'd ask you, Simon, what would you think of an access policy that isn't based on IP, that's based on who you are and what you want to do? Let's say I'm Rob and I need to access a server, and it's as simple as creating a rule that states that.
I like that idea a lot, mostly because I'm using a different device every day. I might be connected in a totally different place every day, and I would love to have the same kind of experience every day.
Excellent. Well, that's what we're going for. You hit the nail on the head. The plethora of devices that we all have every day, and maintaining that consistent access. So, what the team has built and will be releasing shortly here to public beta in May, is a feature we're calling adaptive policy.
Yeah, adaptive policy. That's actually a nice descriptive name. I think we've really nailed it there.
Thanks. I certainly can't take credit for the name. The genesis of the name was actually from Alex, who's also on the call here. Really, the core of adaptive policy is as simple as that previous example. Creating a policy based on the intent of what you want to happen in the network. So we're using some really incredible Cisco technologies behind the scenes that we'll talk about shortly here. But this whole solution adaptive policy, we're really focused on maintaining the Meraki simplicity of it, but using some of these powerful technologies that Cisco offers to the market. So it's really the best of both worlds that we're bringing forth with this feature. Now, I've kind of talked very high level, like, that this vision of adaptive policy, but what is it, right? What adaptive policy ultimately is for us is a single organization-wide policy that can be deployed across an entire Meraki organization that is based on who you are. So not based on where you are, the IP address information, it is based on who you are in the network. So you have this ability to actually create a rule set that is based on, like I said, Rob accessing a server or Alex accessing infrastructure devices. So it's very intuitive. It's very straightforward. It's very Meraki. It's a very typical Meraki approach to delivering a complex technology.
Yeah, I think it sounds like it sounds like we've nailed it. That definitely is a very intuitive way of thinking about things. What more can you tell me about it? I guess I need to know a little bit more detail maybe about how we actually build this up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think on the last podcast, we briefly chatted about this concept of security group tags, also called SGTs, and how when we took on the endeavor of the MS390, we were focused on leveraging some of those advanced technologies, and SGTs was one of them. Well, adaptive policy is the feature that is leveraging SGTs underneath or on that MS390 platform. SGT technology has been around for years within Cisco. It's a mature technology. It's part of the TrustSec architecture, and we viewed this as the technology that we'd be able to use to accomplish our goals.
And those goals, those goals are what?
Abstracting policy from IPs, so making that policy identity based, deploying a policy across an entire organization, and having that consistent enforcement behavior across every adaptive policy capable device in your network. Beyond that, we also wanted to make sure that we were taking into consideration interoperation with the other technologies that Cisco offers in this space that are SGT based, whether that's TrustSec or SD Access. So we wanted to leverage a technology that could interoperate seamlessly and easily. So from a technology level, Alex, what is, in your mind, what makes SGTs the perfect solution here?
Awesome. Yeah. So if we look at what kind of makes up SGTs and in the inline SGT functionality that we're leveraging with adaptive policy, there's a couple key things to remember about it. First and foremost, it's adding a new layer to that traffic. For every single packet that a client generates, attaching that identity to that packet, so that as that traffic traverses different network devices, each network device is able to understand the source of that traffic and be able to potentially apply policy to it. And what this gives us is the ability to not only perform large-scale policy at scale, since we're not worrying about having a giant list of IP addresses, but also give us the ability to share identity upstream with the next hop in line. And this kind of leads into one of the things that I like to discuss with reasons behind adaptive policy is that we do have a lot of fairly granular ways of providing policy today in the existing product, whether it's group policies, or if you look at switch ACLs, we can perform some pretty granular functions there. But at no point do those policies and that identity information from that client get shared to each device. So group policies typically are very much centric to just the network device that client is attached to. And so as we build out adaptive policy, the other half of this is not just identity, but being able to perform what's called micro-segmentation, for instance, in a VLAN, so that you can stop two clients from communicating that shouldn't be able to. A good example would be IoT devices are pretty known for getting malware, not being secured super well, and they usually are able to spread malware between IoT devices, especially in the same subnet. And so one of the goals behind this feature set is to be able to apply policy that does not permit those two devices to talk to each other while still being in that same subnet. So reducing the amount of complexity in the actual wired network and the actual design for those wired networks, while being able to add a lot more control and granular control over those endpoints.
So Alex, I want to just quickly jump in here. This is really interesting because the approach we take to do this is what I would love to make sure I've understood correctly. If you generally have like two different client devices or IoT devices within a VLAN, within a network segment, they are normally able to talk entirely freely between each other without having any kind of security interrupting that conversation flow. If I understood what you said correctly, this is what I want to make sure I understand, is that we have some way of attaching a little bit like a header approach that we have in IP to the beginning of or any of the packets of data that are being flowed around the network to make sure that we are able to act on information about those clients that we can then presumably tie back to an authentication database. Have I got that roughly right?
Yeah. So just to more or less summarize what you said, we're applying the identity to each packet that a client generates, and then allowing you to perform policy on each network hop, so that if a client is a wireless client and tries to connect to, for instance, another wireless client or wired client, even if it's on another network device, we can tell the source of that traffic's identity and be able to determine whether or not it's allowed to connect to that endpoint that that network device has, so that you can absolutely be able to apply policy that spans multiple network devices or even multiple sites.
Wow. That is a very powerful capability we've developed there. How on earth did we come up with this idea?
Well, luckily we didn't have to start and design this idea. We did heavily leverage the TrustSec architecture that Cisco has had for the past 10 years. We did borrow a subset of it with the inline SGT functionality, which gave us a lot of the features and functionality that customers had asked for, while also giving us a lot of, as Rob had mentioned, interoperability with other Cisco technologies. And like a cool aspect of this is, let's say a customer has an adaptive policy environment, and then they have, ACI in their data center, which is kind of a software-defined data center technology. We're easily able to share that identity information into ACI utilizing Cisco ICE, and be able to perform policy in that same level of segmentation and control, even into that ACI environment that is 100% not managed by Meraki. And even more.
Maybe, sorry, Rob, just explain a couple of those concepts for us. ACI, you mentioned there, and I think ICE as well. Let's just be clear what we're talking about here. I think many of our listeners will understand, but just to be sure.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I always get caught in my acronym world. So ACI is the application-centric infrastructure, which allows you in your data center to build a network fabric that utilizes a technology a lot like SGTs called EPGs, to be able to tag traffic in the data center and be able to perform the same types of control over services. And so there's been the concept of TrustSec, which does SGT-based policy, and then ACI leveraged that same type of technology to bring it into the data center and be able to give control over data center resources. And so the way that we tie that SGT-based policy with the ACI infrastructure is through an appliance that Cisco has called the Identity Services Engine, which operates as a radius server, but more importantly, a NAC server, giving you profiling and radius policy and the ability to assign tags to clients, for instance, dynamically based on anything from just the user's group they are in Active Directory, all the way to the type of device, the posture of that device, if that device has a firewall enabled, for instance, and a number of other attributes like where they're connected and how, so that you can have that dynamic policy attachment to this tag-based policy as well.
This is really cool stuff. And I love how Alex loves to get really deep into this stuff. And you give him long enough and he's going to go hardcore on this technology. And sooner or later, he's going to lose everybody. But I always respect the fact that we have that sort of nth degree of knowledge in this team. That's super awesome. Rob, help us to just put this into a little bit of context around the switch and how it's really adding value and moving that product forward from its basic function as switching packets.
Yeah, absolutely, Simon. So yeah, when like I said, when we brought the MS390 to market, a lot of the reason we brought the 390 to market was just it unlocks a lot of these advanced features for us that we can start to evaluate and figure out how to deliver them to our customers in a very Merakified way. When we looked at the 390 and decided, hey, this is the policy challenge is one that we want to tackle, it just was a natural fit for us to create this concept of adaptive policy. So, microsegmentation is top of mind for everybody with the proliferation of IoT devices. We see the requirements coming up in retail for PCI and in manufacturing, and that ability to really bring security services right down into that LAN segment. So for us, it was really just a problem that we'd heard a number of times from our customers, and we felt like the time was right for us to put a solution together.
Mm-hmm. And it is a complex thing to explain to people. I mean, Amelie, obviously in product marketing, that's part of the craft of that, right? So how have you taken the technology of adaptive policies and really how do you like to articulate it yourself?
Well, Simon, adaptive policy is a really interesting feature because it's complex. I wouldn't say as a marketer it's easy to digest when you first learn about it, especially because it's taking such an enterprise feature from Cisco and then Merakifying it. So some of the analogies I like to come up with when explaining adaptive policy to, let's say, people who don't really know about policies in general is imagine if you are at a nightclub or a bar, and there's usually, when you're waiting in line to get in, there's usually someone who checks your ticket to see that you've paid and you've paid for your spot. But then usually there's a second person that checks to see your age by looking at your driver's license. And ultimately, the bouncer or the one who checks your age and gives you the stamp is the one that decides if you are able to get in or not, right? From that stamp that they give you if you're 21 or older, it signifies that, okay, you are compliant with all the rules and now you're allowed in. And so sometimes I think that the stamp kind of represents secure group tags, the tags that get carried through the network. And the bouncer is the one who ultimately decides whether to allow or deny you. And so that's kind of analogy that I've been running with. Does that make sense to you, Simon?
I actually like that one, and let me see if my interpretation of what I've heard today is accurate. If I've got that stamp on my hand, theoretically, I could go to another nightclub with that's part of the same group of nightclubs, and still get let in with the stamp that's on my hand. Did I get that right?
Um.
And if I didn't, you can say no, or Alex, jump in, help me out here.
Yeah, I could. I guess I'd look at it more so like, and actually looking at the bouncer aspect. I think this analogy works nicely, but as long as you think of that bouncer standing between you and everyone else in that nightclub and letting you know whether or not you're actually allowed to talk to them or not.
Mm.
Yeah, actually, I take it. I'd like to kind of tackle on what Simon has said. Actually, I think of it as instead of going to a different nightclub and hoping that that stamp works, it's not really that. It's more like you're still in the same nightclub, and perhaps that nightclub has maybe 5 different entrances, right?
Mm.
And at each entrance, there's a different bouncer, so they've never seen you before. So what if you come in and out of the nightclub, but from different entrances? Luckily, the stamp that you have on your hand is easily read by every bouncer, even though they're different.
Wow.
And thereby letting you in or not letting you in. Does that work, do you think, guys?
Definitely works for me. It makes perfect sense. And I can't think of any other episode of Meraki Unboxed where we have used the analogy of a nightclub, a bouncer, and a stamp on the back of your hand to explain one of our most awesome features we've ever invented in this business. That's marketing on the fly. I love it. Thanks, Amelie. So Rob, what were some of the challenges with building this feature? It doesn't sound like it was an entirely straightforward thing to just turn on just one day.
Yeah, there were. There were no challenges. I don't know what you're talking about, Simon. This was easy. Now, but in all sincerity, this is. This is what we do here, right? Like we take these incredibly complex topics and Merakify them, and this is no different. We had to take a look at the core problem. For us, the core problem was how do you change the game when it comes to IP-based policy? How do you create that org-wide intent-based policy that provides consistent experience across your organization and microsegmentation? And that when you start to think about policy, well, you have to start to think about, to what level are we going to take this policy down to? How granular are we going to let people configure it? So, there were a lot of challenges just in terms of thinking about what kind of scale should we work towards? How complex should we open this up, right? Like as we start to implement these more advanced technologies, we have to be judicious in how much of the configuration capabilities we offer up, right? I'll give you an example. So as part of the adaptive policy feature, adaptive policy is available on the 390s, but it's also available on the MRs. So the thing about adaptive policy is every device that's in line has to support those SGTs, has to support that tag on the Ethernet frame. So, when let's say you're enabling adaptive policy, we wanted to do something that made this super simple, right? We all have heard so many times how Meraki's focus is simplicity. When you connect an MR to an MS390 and you try and enable adaptive policy, what the MR will do is it'll automatically recognize if the link that it's on is SGT capable. So if you accidentally enable adaptive policy and plug the MR into a non-SGT capable switch, it'll recognize that it's not capable of connecting. So solving those types of problems in a simple way. Now, it's obviously not the most fun challenge that we figured out, but it is an example of like Meraki simplifying it, right?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So as far as the development of this thing from here, obviously we've got it shipped out now, and customers are starting to make use of it in beta form, right? So we're obviously encouraging others to give it a try. What's the easiest way for them to actually get set up for it?
So we're not quite launched as of yet. So we are targeting May 19th for the public beta.
Mm-hmm.
So the team is heads down, just polishing the feature, and we have some private beta internally running. But May 19th, the feature will be available as public beta, and it is based on the MS390, so you will require an MS390, Wave 2 or newer MRAPs, and beta firmware will be released that has the feature. So if you have that set up, if you have that implemented, you'll start to see adaptive policy in the dashboard and be able to configure and test with it. Nice.
I look forward to doing that as soon as I can get my hands on one of those switches. Obviously, that MS390 is a super powerful switch that we launched last year. I know there's a whole bunch of extra capabilities that's added to our list of hardware side abilities, as well as the power to be able to do some of these features. What do we see as the kind of long-term vision? What's next for that product and for this area?
Excellent question. Adaptive policy everywhere. I think that now that we're how can I put it? I think that now we're embracing some of these more advanced features that we want to continue to expose them to, or expose our customers to them, but in that Meraki simple way. So in terms of vision, it's kind of tough to say any specific features, but really just continuing down this path now that we have the hardware capabilities of offering up these advanced features in a very Meraki centric way.
Nice. Alex, have you got this set up in your home lab?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us about how you've been testing it out.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest benefits out of this feature is multiple devices, like network devices, connected together, being able to share identity. And so I mean, it's as simple as having two wired clients on the same switch, you can easily, apply policy and watch traffic change and being permitted, denied, or even like custom permissions. But in my lab environment, just to test and validate that things are functioning properly, I've got access points with wireless clients, and then I've got some wired resources plugged into those switches, giving me the ability to see policy across platforms in at a larger scale.
Nice. And I know you got a whole load of Meraki gear in your place. Tell us about some of the fun demos you've been playing around with.
That's a good question.
I know there is something.
Actually, so just talking about interoperability between Cisco technologies, I also have an SD Access, Cisco's SD Access Fabric Lab, which is the kind of next generation network from a Catalyst perspective. And one of the demos I built was using adaptive policy to share identity information into that SD Access environment and be able to perform policy across those two different domains.
That's actually pretty significant, right? Because I don't remember whether we touched on that, but the fact that you can pass this stuff from a Meraki environment into other Cisco technologies as well, I think that's pretty powerful, and that's what you're describing. Have I got that right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Well, I think we've covered a very important topic here. It's pretty straightforward in terms of its breadth, but the power of it, I think, is immense. And the fact that we can now provide that level of security within networks as well as between them to provide a common experience for users as they move around, and also to protect against those potentially difficult IoT devices, as we certainly start to see more and more of those getting deployed as well over time. So it's going to become, I think, more relevant feature as we move forward. Seems like a really good way to handle things in a much more flexible way than those pages-long ACL lists that I remember doing back in my day, which were very, very painful, as I recall. Okay, so we're going to wrap things up here. I want to thank the panel. It sounds very formal, doesn't it? I want to thank the panel for joining us today on sunny Friday afternoon. It's been a long week for us here at Meraki. Lots of work going on. There's really no change, even though we are scattered to the four winds in our respective home offices. We are working furiously to keep these products and features coming to you. And obviously, the one you've heard about today, as soon as that's available and you are in this line of work, I definitely recommend reaching out to your contacts at Meraki to get set up if you can. Thanks again for joining us on Meraki Unboxed. We do this every couple of weeks. We'd love to have you back here regularly. We have some great content on the Unboxed podcast. We're coming up on 1 year that we've been doing this now. It won't be long before we're at a year. And lots of great material in the bag already. So do go back and have a look at some of that material if you have the opportunity to do that. And of course, if you subscribe, then you'll always be getting the latest versions of these into your favorite podcasting app. So from all of us on the panel, I would like to thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe and stay healthy. And we look forward to welcoming you back here in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye for now.